Hi folks, it's Judy Hayner. I'm the Marine Program Director for the Nature Conservancy in Alabama, and I wanted to invite you to come along on a tour of the coast on our Nature's Call today. So give me a second to pull up my screen and share it with you. And we'll start our little tour of the coast. So today along the coast, we're gonna take 5 stops. We're gonna start on the southwest corner at Site 1 of Alabama's coast in Grand Bay. We're gonna move a little bit to the west to Lightning Point and give an update on what's happening down in the bayou. We're gonna come up the bay to Helenwood Park in the city of Mobile and talk about some activities we have going on there. And then we're gonna come across the bay and down into Bon Secours Bay to Swift Tract and talk about some really interesting stuff we have happening there. And we're gonna wrap it up at Perdido Islands, a hot spot down near Orange Beach. So come along and let's start. Grand Bay Savannah is just an incredible place. If you've not been there, you need to put it on your bucket list. I'm gonna show you with my mouse here offshore. You can see kind of the kind of productive coastal waters. The really cool thing about Grand Bay is its productivity. We have the seagrasses that are just off the marsh here. You come into the marsh areas, highly productive areas, great for fisheries and birds. And then you come in, and the really unique part about Grand Bay is this extensive pine savanna that's in here. This pine savanna is one of the habitats that's diminishing. I think only 3% of this habitat is even left. And we've been really fortunate to have it in our backyard in Grand Bay, and the Nature Conservancy has done a great job at helping the state and others protect this area. So let me get to the next slide. So as we move in and we start looking at what we've done, if you look at the map on the right side of this, or on the left side of the screen, what you'll see is the area in green that is currently state-owned forever wildlands. The area in light green way on the left is actually Sandhill Crane, Grand Bay National Wildlife Refuge, and the Research Reserve in Mississippi. So we're not talking about political boundaries here, we're talking about ecosystems. The blue area is the exciting area that we've been able to secure over the past couple of years. And in addition to that blue area, if you can see my cursor, this area in the middle, this large tract, we've been able to secure that tract as well as another tract up here on the north end above the word Grand. And so we've really added pretty close to 3,000 acres into this protected area. What that means is we have almost 30,000 acres of protected area that span from Bayou La Battery over into Mississippi. Super exciting that it is actually protected for the public for the long term. And if you travel the shoreline, that's about 120 miles of protected shoreline that folks can kind of boat and recreate with. So again, a very exciting project, and good to see that finally come together. Now, as we look at purchasing this property, that's not the end result. So once we purchase it, we've got to do something with it. We want to maintain it in its healthy nature. So if you look at the map on the right, you can see where we're putting fire lanes in. We're improving roads for access, for management, and we're getting ready to put fire back on the ground here. And sometimes fire can be scary, but in this landscape, it needs it to be maintained healthy. And so we're working with partners through the state, through the local governments, to get fire on the ground out here in a safe way so that we can start making the system even better than it is. So now let's head a little bit to the west and look at Lightning Point at Bayou La Battery. This is the biggest project we've ever undertaken for our chapter. This project in construction is about 15 million. We acquired this marshland that you see on the north end of the slide. We acquired that property as well as a little bit more to the west. And so, I mean, in total, this is about a $21 million project. It's huge for us. What we've done is we're looking at, we've installed 1.5 miles of breakwater that you see along the right side of the screen. And we have these small berms within that have made phases, cells, for us to pump dredge material in here. And this dredge material came from the dredging of the ship channel itself. So we're reusing dredge material into our project, which is great use for that type of material. And we're building out these different cells for creating the marsh habitat that will ultimately protect this shoreline. Right now, this first phase that you see is done. The second phase, frankly, is done. And this third phase is now in the process of dewatering. So the sediment's been put in there. And what we have to do is wait for the water to kind of leach out of that and let the sediment settle down and consolidate a bit before we can get in there and plant. In addition to putting this in, we've put 2 jetties in, one across the bottom of the screen, and we're working with Marine Resources and our state partners to improve the boat ramp over to the side, as well as to put in a low impact development parking area that will provide about 75 slips for boats and trailers and access for the public to get out here. So it's really a neat project and it's well underway. But my favorite part of the project is actually across the channel on the west side. This area on the upper left picture, the big, massive natural area, is part of the Grand Bay Savanna. And what we have is an area that was about 10 acres. It was surrounded by a berm, and this was an old dredge spoil area. So when the Army Corps would come in and dredge this channel, they would dispose of the material on this site. So what we've done is we've taken this berm down, we've come in and we're recreating the tidal creeks, and we're going to reconnect this back out to the Mississippi Sound, along with, again, protecting the shoreline to ensure that we can maintain this channel for boat navigation, especially for the shipping and shrimping and seafood industries that are prominent down here in the bayou. On a side note, in this upper left picture, this area up on the north end, the creek, as we got in and started looking at this area to take it down, we realized we had this massive trash eddy over to the side. And you can see the before and after pictures on the right. We had crews of, I think it was a 4-man crew that went out for a couple of days and actually hand removed about 5 tons of trash material from out here. And then we had an intern that, as part of her project, was cataloging this debris, recycling as much as we could, which ended up being about 50% was recycled. That really, for me, the really interesting part of this process was looking at the volume of plastic that we were able to secure. And if you can imagine, the weight, plastic is pretty light. So to get 1,000 pounds of plastic, that's a lot of plastic, and pretty disappointing to see. We'll be tracking this over time, and we're also tracking some of the sources of these materials so that we can go back and talk with them about best practices, maybe alternatives to what they're using in the area. And we're working on this through campaigns that our partners are also working on in other areas. So we're excited about tracing this trash back upstream. Let's leave the bayou and round the corner under Dauphin Island Bridge and head up the bay to just north of Dog River to Helenwood Park. This area is really a prime spot that we've worked in for a long time. And you can see in the map on the right that the green marks are old reefs that we've had in for some time now. We actually put these reefs in 2011, right after the oil spill happened. And what we've seen over time is that these bag shell reefs have really taken a beating from the ship waves. If you can imagine, if you look at the small map at the top, you can imagine the ship channel comes right up the center of Mobile Bay. And so those ship wakes really beat this shore to death. And so those bag shell did a lot of protection early on, and then we noticed that they were kind of waning in their ability to protect the shoreline. So we have another project coming online. This shell is still great habitat. We want it to be there, but we need something a little beefier to be able to help break those waves down. So the shell will remain in place along with some oyster castles that we installed with Alabama Power back in 2017. And what we'll do is we'll put additional breakwaters in, starting here at the bulkhead, if you've been to Helenwood Park, at this bulkhead, and we'll extend them north actually to include and encompass the area of this water treatment plant. The city is in the process of purchasing this this abandoned water treatment plant from the Mobile Area Water and Sewer Service. And what we'll do, they're going to make that into a park. And what we'll do is make sure that our project includes areas that we can extend up to that to incorporate the protection of that park as well for the long term for the public. So this is exciting. We're just anticipating designs coming in the spring. We'll start working on refining those designs through the fall, and hopefully next fall we'll have designs and a permit in hand, and we'll be able to start construction late this year or early next year. Now let's head across the bay and take a look at, let me get out of here. And oh, this is just a picture, another picture of our Helenwood Park site. These are the oyster castles that we installed with Alabama Power to help protect the habitat provided by the bag shell reefs. Again, these were installed, I think, in 2017. And then the marsh that's behind there that we want to see remain. So let's head across the bay now to Bon Secours, and we come down and we see Swift Track. The upper left picture is the initial 1/3 miles of Swift Track that the Nature Conservancy installed in 2012. This project was really successful in helping break the wave energy down and protecting this 600+ acre tract of property behind it that's owned and managed by the state and Weeks Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve. The picture on the upper right is actually a project that NOAA proposed following the Deepwater Horizon spill to add on to our reefs. And we had about 1/3 of a mile for the reefs that we built. Well, NOAA added another 1.7 miles. So now we have just over 2 miles of reef out protecting the shoreline. It's the longest stretch we have in coastal Alabama. And we're really proud of this. And we're helping NOAA monitor the reefs that they installed as well, so that we can look at how these perform over time. And you know, as a, let me get out of here. As a science-based organization, one of the things that we really do is look at the science behind these things. Are they working? If they're not working to the full extent, can we tweak them so they do work? So take a look at these reefs, the rock on the upper left, and you can see where we have some of our monitoring equipment out there, this little PVC up in the left. Well, what that little PVC is, go to the lower left, and that's basically a housing we can put a camera on and take a picture of it. And what we're curious about is what is colonizing these, right? So we go out every year and we put this little PVC down here on the lower left, we put it down and we scrape this. It's about a 10 centimeter square unit. And what happens then is Dauphin Island Sea Lab kind of takes it back and analyzes it at the lab, kind of counts everything that's in there, and we're tracking that over time to see what's colonizing. Now, we might not get big things in this, but what we get are the babies and the little stuff that the small fish eat, and then the big fish eat the small fish. So we do have a really great food chain happening out here. In addition to that, you see the bottom right, this is a 1/4 meter square where we count mussels and oysters, bivalves, every year. And then on the top right, what you see is a cage that we've installed out on the site. And what these do is they kind of mimic the reef. We put them out there when we started the project, and each year we come out and we collect one cage from several different sampling sites. And we look at what is colonizing those as an example of what is happening on the full reef. So that's pretty exciting because we get to see crabs and fish and all kinds of stuff that live in those cages. And we're tracking that over time to be able to look at how the productivity of that reef is progressing. So again, really exciting. And of course, we love to have the science behind what we're doing. That's the foundation of how we work. Well, on the opposite end of the coin, if we head down the intercoastal now over to the Perdido Islands down at the mouth of, at the mouth of Perdido Pass, what we see is the 3 major islands that we're working on. The red is Robinson, the purple is Bird, and blue is Walker. Now, these islands are just great habitat. We have heron rookeries on Robinson Island. We have nesting shorebirds on Bird Island, but we also have hundreds of boats that go to these islands every weekend. And they're not just, they're visitors and they're residents. We all love this spot. It's a really beautiful area, but we need to protect both the people and the wildlife here. So we're working with NOAA and the city of Orange Beach on a project down here that um, basically looks at managing these multiple uses. So we are looking at habitat and vegetation so that we can expand that for these birds and for the wildlife. But at the same time, we're looking at recreational boat counts. And this is an example of another project an intern is doing for us, where they're doing a recreational boat analysis. They are out on getting aerials from holiday weekends over the last 5 years or so and counting the boats to see what that use looks like. And if we can figure out if that use is increasing or stable, we can look at restoration alternatives that might either expand the beach, that might provide areas that are protected or off limits areas for the birds, but allow the public to do more. And those are the types of things we're trying to put into a plan for down here. But it's pretty complicated, if you can imagine. We're all about people and nature, but sometimes that balance can be complicated. In the meantime, I just would say that part of this is being done through public funds, and part of this is being done through private funds. And that's the case with almost every project we do. The monitoring that we're doing is not always supported through the grants that we get. And some of the smaller public stuff is not supported through the grants we get. And for us to expand upon these projects and build in the extra special touches that it takes to really make them successful, it's the private funds that really help us bring those to fruition. So we really appreciate your support and your interest in the projects that we have going on. And we're excited to have you join us on these nature calls to learn more about what we have going on. Thank you so much.